In this video, we'll be looking at presenting posters or booths. Now, a booth is a situation where usually you would have a poster plus additional physical materials. So we're going to begin with talking about the layout and setup of a poster, and then how to talk about it or about the other materials in your booth. When you're preparing to do a poster session of whatever sort, the first thing is to make sure what the requirements are for that poster. What's the maximum size? You want to use something as big as possible so you can have as much space to share as possible. But again, there are usually size limits on the poster board or the area you're going to mount it in. And therefore, if you exceed that, it's going to cause problems. Most poster sessions at international conferences go by feet. A 3 foot by 4 foot poster, which is about 90 by 120 centimeters. And sometimes they have a restriction as well. Can it only be vertical or can it be horizontal? Because again, vertical, you can fit more posters in a given area than if they're horizontal. And so it's important to find out if there are restrictions on the layout before you start developing your poster. Also think about how you're going to hold the materials to the board. Some places will provide clamps or pins or something else. In other cases, you have to provide those yourself. So these are things to make sure of before you go to your poster session. Now, as far as the layout should be eye-catching because there are a lot of posters in the room and people will just walk by if it doesn't look interesting. So that means not too much information so it looks crowded, not too little information so it looks like there's nothing there. And you can have other details, other materials available that are not in your poster, in a computer or in whatever format, printed form, that you can refer to if people are interested in more detail. Now, in preparing the parts, the best thing is instead of laying out the whole poster as one poster, prepare individual sections. So prepare one block that has the title of the poster, your name, your affiliation, all that for the top of the poster. And then other parts for the introduction, materials, methods, all of the different parts of the research should have a separate section. As much as possible, try to use bullet points for the same reason as in a PowerPoint presentation. People will not sit there and read a whole paragraph. They don't have time. They don't have that much interest. But they can scan well laid out bullet points very quickly and get the main idea. And then ask if they want more information about something. Graphics are very important. They can be an eye-catching center of attention that will draw people in. But again, don't make it too crowded because then people won't take the time to read everything. But you can also try to lead people through your poster, just as we talked about with a table. You can leave space between columns, and that will make people tend to read in columns. They know how to read it in order to get things in the right order if they're interested. Make sure the font is large enough so that people can see it and read it from about 2 meters away, because that's a normal reading distance for a poster. Also, before you go, think about how are you going to get it there? Do you need a poster tube? Are you going to bring it back? How many other times would it be useful? Is it worth taking the time to bring back? And before you go, make sure you practice. Practice with your research group, practice with your friends, practice in a class.
I think it would be also very practical and useful if you go to a department store to look at all the booths or a night market to see all the booths and talk to those people who set up their booths to sell their products. What they consider as important. How do they sell their products? What are their sales pitch? So if you can do a little bit study by visiting the department store or the night market, you may get very good ideas on how to sell your products in your poster session.
So In case you're not familiar with the format of a poster session, in a poster session, there are many people set up in a room, sometimes with space between them, sometimes almost right next to one another, depending how much space is available. And if there are judges for that poster session, the judges will be moving from one person to another down the line around the room. And they'll only take about 5 minutes per person, which means you cannot present everything. At the same time, there are other attendees of the conference that will be walking around, and you're trying to attract their attention. But they probably won't stop unless, number one, your poster looks interesting, and number two, you make some contact with them. But speaking with these non-judges helps, because it helps you to see what types of questions they might ask, what's unclear, what they might be interested in. So initiate conversation. As people go by, say, "Good morning. Would you like me to explain my poster? Do you have any questions?" Just as you said, in the night market, the hawkers will call attention to their product. You have to do the same thing.
Or on campus, we have job fairs.
Right.
Then why are there so many booths? You tend to choose certain booths to visit. And how do they call your attention? What is your display? Think about it.
Mm-hmm. And just as we talked about with a conference, in a poster session, there are also differences between the novices and the experts. The novices, the young graduate students, are going to say, "I have no idea. Tell me what you're doing." Whereas the experts are going to be asking very focused questions about why you did this research, justification, what these results mean, specific issues. And those are the ones that you may want to take notes on for dealing with later. Judges, of course, will be asking questions related to the judging criteria. We'll be talking about that in a later unit. So, for instance, we've been helping a group dealing with preparing for a robotics competition. And on that competition website, it listed a number of questions that the judges might ask you to answer. For instance, tell me about the design process your team used. That's basically the methods. What's the most creative part of your robot? What features make it unique or different? What features were specifically designed to give you a strategic advantage? Those are all things about the novelty of your design. And then, what was your biggest maintenance headache in dealing with your robot? Problems that you encountered. So the types of questions depend on, obviously, the type of work that you're doing. And again, most websites, most conferences will have some idea if there's going to be a judging session, and it's not just a standard academic conference, they'll try to give you some clue as to what the judges will be asking. So pay attention to that.
In other words, they ask, what is the problem? What is your solution? How did you find your solution?
Right. And make sure too that you know how and when to quit. Sometimes people will, in a booth, they get somebody that's interested and they just keep on talking, and the person is like, well, how can I get out of here? So make sure that you give an answer and then pause and then pay attention to their response. If they're looking bored, if they're looking like they're ready to move on, let them move. Focus on the most responsive person in a group, because they're the ones that are really paying attention to you. And if you focus on one person, the others, if they're not interested, can also just walk away. But don't focus only on that one person. Look around to try to get everybody's attention, to try to keep them there as much as possible. Because just like a night market, a crowd attracts a crowd. If there are people there, other people will come and say, hey, what's interesting about this? And when you're interacting with someone, offer to send them more information if they're truly interested in your work. Have a name card available that you can give them with your email or contact information, and make note if they ask for specific information. You can write right on the card what it is that they're interested in. That's a quick way of keeping track. And make sure that you send it after that. So you can also learn how to respond in a poster session by looking at other people, particularly again, if there are judges. If you're a team, for instance, the iGEM team, some of your team members can move with the judges and listen to what they're asking other teams and see what types of questions, whether they want you to give an initial summary or whether they're just beginning with questions. How much time are they going to spend with each poster? And then you can come back and report to your team so that you're better prepared when they get to you. So these are some suggestions for dealing with nonlinear questioning situations. There are only 2 videos in this unit as we're getting down to the end of our MOOC, and we hope that this is beneficial to you.
Practice before you go.